The thing is, I never thought of myself as dangerous. I thought I was a woman who had been ignored for too long. Of course, people remember the two men in the parking garage now, not the years before it. The record showed one night, one phone, one message with my name on it. Nobody wanted to hear why I thought fear would finally make my husband listen. My name is Cressida Moore. I am 42, and I work as a senior insurance claims investigator. The thing is, I built my life around records because records do not soften facts to spare anyone. Of course, that made me sound cold to some people, but the record showed I was usually right. At work, I could find the missing piece in a claim before the claimant finished their coffee. A wrong timestamp. A photo taken after rain stopped. A witness who remembered too much in the same order every time. That was my gift. I knew when a story had been polished. Matteo used to admire that about me. My husband said I could hear the lie before it entered the room. He meant it as praise back when praise still sounded simple between us. There were good things before the record turned ugly. Matteo left a black key fob on the counter every morning because I always misplaced mine. He never made a joke about it. He just placed it near my coffee, metal side facing the cup, like a small service he had chosen. On storm nights, he made rice soup and sat with me at the kitchen table until I stopped checking claims emails. Then Beth's medical bill happened. Matteo used our joint savings to help his sister and told me after the fact. He said he did it because Beth needed help fast and because he knew I would have questions. I heard that as him deciding my questions were a problem before I even asked them. The timing mattered. That was the part people ignored later. At my office, Simone saw me sorting case photos and asked if Matteo and I were better after the savings fight. I told her we were fine because fine was the cleanest word. She said Matteo had looked tired at Beth's last dinner. I said tired was what men called themselves when they wanted credit for avoiding a conversation. Simone went quiet. That evening, Matteo asked when I had started speaking to him like he was an employee. Soft curiosity, no raised voice, no accusation that could be used as evidence. Of course, I heard control anyway. I told him the timing was unfair because I had worked 10 hours and did not want a performance review at home. He said he was not reviewing me. He was asking where his wife had gone. Later, Nina told me a man only asked what changed when he had already lost authority. I laughed because it sounded like rescue. The next morning, Matteo placed the black key fob by my coffee again. I left it there on purpose. Nina's condo balcony had glass railings and a view of traffic that made every problem feel smaller if you stood high enough. The thing is, I went there because I needed someone to say I was not becoming my mother. Of course, Nina never used those words. She knew better. She simply said a woman had to take control before a man trained her to ask permission. I liked the way that sounded. My mother had spent 20 years at a kitchen table with a man who chose every bill, every visit, every answer. At 13, I watched her ask him if she could buy new curtains with money she earned herself. He told her the house did not need them. She nodded and kept eating. That nod stayed in me like a file that never closed. So when Matteo used our savings for Beth, I did not hear medical panic. I heard a man deciding the room. The record showed he did not steal. The record showed Beth was recovering. The record also showed he made the decision alone and told me afterward like a manager giving an update. At Beth's dinner 2 weeks later, I let the anger dress itself as humour. Her dining room smelled like roasted peppers and dish soap. Matteo sat beside me, quiet, making sure Beth had enough water, enough bread, enough of everything. Everyone praised him for being steady. Steady can become a kind of applause if a man is patient enough. I said Matteo only became decisive when the decision was already made behind my back. A few people laughed because the line was sharp and clean. Beth stopped smiling. Simone, who came because I had invited her after work, looked down at her plate. Matteo did not respond at the table. That was his way. He protected the public room and saved the bruise for later. In the car, he asked why I chose Beth's dinner to embarrass him. Specific. Factual. He named the dinner, the line, the way Beth had put down her fork. He asked what happened between us that made me want an audience. I told him public facts were still facts. He said he knew he handled the money badly. He said he should have called me before moving anything. Then he added that he did not know how to talk to me without being punished for the first wrong sentence. That last part should have mattered. It did matter, somewhere under the heat. But of course I heard a man asking to be exempt from accountability because his voice was tired. I told him not every conversation about consequences was punishment. He did not answer for the last 12 minutes of the drive. At home, he placed the black key fob on the counter, even though I had carried mine that day. It looked like kindness. It also looked like a habit that assumed I would fail. Nina heard the story the next evening on her balcony. She wore a cream sweater and held her wine like she had already judged the case. She said Matteo sounded like many men after 40. Quiet when they were wrong, wounded when they were challenged, generous only when they controlled the terms. I told her I did not want to become one of those wives who begged to be consulted. Nina said I already was asking too nicely. Then she mentioned Rafe. Rafe Calder was someone she knew from a gym charity event. He was younger, broad-shouldered, and always smiling like a man who knew doors opened differently for him. I had seen him twice before at Nina's building, once in the lobby and once near the parking entrance. He called women ma'am in a way that sounded respectful until it did not. Nina said Rafe handled awkward conversations for people sometimes. She said that like it meant moving furniture. I asked what that meant. She said some men only listened when a stranger's voice was louder than their wife's. Rafe laughed when she said it because he had come onto the balcony with a beer and no invitation from me. He said nobody had to get hurt for a man to understand pressure. The thing is, I did not hear danger. I heard translation. Rafe asked if Matteo was the kind who needed a reminder. I said Matteo was the kind who made decisions and then hid behind good intentions. Rafe nodded like that was enough. He said men understood being cornered better than they understood being explained to. That word, cornered, should have stopped the conversation. Matteo had told me once, years before, about being surrounded by older boys behind a community centre when he was 16. They had taken his bag, pushed him against a wall, and laughed when he tried to talk his way out. He hated being boxed in by men. He hated stairwells. He never liked parking near concrete corners. He trusted me with that too. The first active lie came 2 days later. Matteo asked if I still checked his shared work calendar after the money fight. He asked while folding towels in our bedroom. Nothing dramatic. Just a man trying to find the edge of my anger. I said I never checked it. That night, after he slept, I opened his schedule and wrote his evening parking routine on a yellow sticky note. North Garage. Lower level, usually 8:40. Stairwell by Blue Line. At work the next day, Simone walked past my desk while I copied the times into my phone. She looked at the sticky note, then she looked at me. She did not ask. That was her flaw and her mercy. Simone respected boundaries so much she sometimes used them as shelter. She turned away without a word. The record showed that was the first witness I had, even if nobody knew what they were witnessing yet. The community fundraiser hall was full of school parents, donors, staff, and people who liked to clap when a microphone worked. The thing is, Matteo was good in rooms where nobody called it performance. He fixed lights, moved chairs, checked cords, and made himself useful enough that people thanked him with both hands. Of course, I was supposed to stand there and admire my husband for being invisible in a helpful way. He worked as facilities manager for a private school, which meant everyone treated him like the calm man behind the calm evening. Donors praised him because the projector ran. Parents praised him because the air conditioning worked. Beth praised him because she praised anything he did in public after the savings fight, as if gratitude could erase how he had handled our money. Nina arrived in red lipstick and whispered that practical men got worshipped for doing the bare minimum. That line warmed me more than the cheap white wine. Rafe stood near the bar area. He was not part of the school crowd, but Nina had brought him as her guest. and he fit himself into the edge of the room easily. He watched people like he was deciding who could be moved. Arturo was at the front table helping with guest entry. He worked as concierge in our building, but the school had hired extra hands through a local service, and there he was with a clipboard. Arturo had never liked me after the package incident. I had blamed him for losing a delivery that I had collected and forgotten in my trunk. He had proved it politely with a timestamp. Since then, he treated me with careful respect and never wasted a record. The fundraiser had a casual speech moment after the raffle. Matteo had just fixed a microphone cord near the front. People clapped for him because the sound returned. I stood beside Nina and heard that clap as a verdict. So I made the joke. I said Matteo was brave with pipes and breakers but terrified of one direct conversation with his wife. A few people laughed because I delivered it well. Timing mattered. Tone mattered. The first laugh gave permission to the second. Then I added that some men needed training wheels for emotional courage. The laugh became uneven. Not gone, but broken. A school parent covered her mouth with her program. Beth's face closed from across the room. Simone, standing near the back, stopped clapping. Arturo looked up from the clipboard and wrote something down, though maybe it was only a name. Matteo did not correct me in the room. He finished coiling the microphone cord and set it down with both hands. The action was calm enough to look harmless. That was always Matteo's power. He could make refusal look like housekeeping. He asked me to step near the coat check. Quiet debrief. No public counterattack. No anger for people to judge. Just his hand open toward the side hall. Of course I heard command. Near the coat check, where the air smelled like wool and old perfume, he told me he knew he had hurt me with the money decision. He said I had every right to be angry about that. Then he said I was choosing witnesses instead of words. I told him maybe witnesses were necessary when private conversations went nowhere. He said private conversations went nowhere because I treated every mistake like a case file. He said I did not want repair. I wanted a finding. The record showed he was not fully wrong. That made me crueler. I said at least case files had evidence, while his good intentions always appeared after he had already done what he wanted. I said Beth got protected, he got praised, and I got told to calm down in nicer words. He reached into his pocket and removed the black key fob. I had forgotten mine again. He placed it in my hand. Same small service, same metal edge against my palm. In that public hallway, after my public joke, the object felt ordinary and humiliating at the same time. I gave it back too sharply. The plastic hit his fingers. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make the moment visible. Nina saw it from the doorway. Her smile faded. Rafe saw it too. His smile grew smaller, more private. Beth started walking toward us, then stopped because Matteo shook his head once. That was his flaw again. He stopped help before it arrived, then later acted alone because nobody had helped him. I returned to the room first. I made my face easy. I accepted a drink from a donor's wife and laughed at something I did not hear. The room had shifted, but I tried to write over it with movement. I knew how to do that. A room could be redirected if you moved fast enough. Simone passed me near the dessert table and asked if I was okay. I said of course I was. She asked if Matteo was okay. That question made my mouth go flat. I told her Matteo enjoyed looking wounded when there was an audience. Simone said she did not think he had looked like he was enjoying anything. Then she took a napkin and walked to another table. Beth came next. She did not ask. She told me Matteo did not deserve being made into entertainment for school families. I told her she was protective because of the money and because she liked him owing her. Beth's eyes changed. She said Matteo did not owe her. She owed him, and she was not proud of how much. That should have softened me. Instead, I heard another person defending his quiet decisions because they benefited from them. Matteo left before the final donor photo. I watched him go through the side entrance with his coat over one arm. No drama, no speech, just absence in a doorway that people could see if they cared to look. Rafe came to my side after Matteo left. He said Matteo looked like a man who had never been truly challenged. Nina told him not to start, but she did not leave. That mattered too. At the front table, Arturo wrote the time in the building service log because Matteo had exited through the staff corridor. I saw the pen move. I told myself he was only doing his job. The timing mattered. Matteo stopped leaving the black key fob beside my coffee 2 weeks before the garage. The thing is, absence has a sound if a habit has been repeated long enough. Of course, I noticed the empty space before I noticed how little my husband was speaking to me. The counter looked too clean, mug, spoon, mail. No key fob. I had mine that morning. That was not the point. Matteo moved through the kitchen in a grey sweater, making coffee without asking if I wanted any. He had never been a loud man, but this quiet was not his old quiet. His old quiet avoided fights. This one measured distance. I tried a controlled apology after work. Not a full one. Full apologies give the other person too much control over the record. I said the fundraiser joke went further than I intended. I said the room had been tense and I had handled the timing badly. Matteo put his glass in the sink. He said intention did not erase repetition. I told him repetition was a strong word. He said money arguments, public jokes, private contempt, and my need to make him smaller before he could disappoint me were not separate events. They were the same event wearing different clothes. That sentence sat between us. Of course, I told myself he had rehearsed it. That was easier than hearing it. I said he made me feel powerless first. I said he decided about Beth, decided about our money, decided what I could handle, then acted surprised when I stopped asking nicely. For once, he did not defend the savings decision. He admitted he had handled it badly. He said he had been afraid of the fight. He said Beth was sick, I was angry, and he chose the path that got the money there fastest. His vulnerability was plain. No performance, no clean moral shape. Just a tired man saying he had been afraid of me. The part people ignore is that he was right and wrong together. He had avoided me. He had chosen around me. He had made me feel like a danger in my own marriage. But when he said he was afraid, I did not hear warning. I heard proof that pressure worked. I used weaponized softness next. I lowered my voice and told him I wanted us back. I said I missed storm nights and rice soup. I said I missed being the woman he cared enough to argue with. The words were not fake, but the use of them was. Matteo asked if I missed him, or missed winning his attention. That ended the softness. I said maybe if he had acted like a husband before Beth's crisis, I would not need to work this hard to be heard. He closed his eyes for 1 second, then opened them with less in them. Beth called that night. She said I was not welcome at Sunday dinner unless Matteo asked for me there. I called it family interference. Beth said Matteo had spent years protecting me from consequences, and she was done helping him do it. She ended the call before I could build a better answer. Nina's replies changed too. I sent her long messages about Beth, the kitchen conversation, the missing key fob. She answered with shorter lines. She said I was right to demand respect, but maybe the heat needed to lower. Maybe was not a word Nina used when she still stood beside me. Simone became work only. She sent claim notes without personal comments. Arturo became formal in the lobby. He greeted me by last name once, then corrected himself, but the record had already heard it. That evening, I found the black key fob beside the bathroom sink. It was wet on one side, like Matteo had washed his hands, and set it down without caring where I saw it. My phone buzzed at the same time with a notification that his location sharing was no longer available. The bathroom light made everything too bright. White sink, chrome faucet, black key fob. My phone screen with the simple message that access had been removed. The door opened then. Not the bathroom door. Something smaller and worse. Matteo had always given access, like love. The fob on the counter, the shared calendar, his parking routine, his school schedule, his location because I liked knowing he got home safe. Now he was taking access back, not to punish me loudly, but because access no longer felt safe with me. For a few seconds, the record lined itself up. my mother at the kitchen table. My stepfather deciding the curtains, me promising I would never live under that kind of control. Then Matteo's face in the fundraiser coat check, his hand offering the key fob, my hand hitting it back, his location disappearing from my phone. I had built the house I hated. I had simply changed who held the key. The thing is, a door like that cannot stay open if you need to keep standing. I picked up the key fob and dried it with a towel. I told myself if Matteo had listened the first time, I would not need stronger measures. I told myself removing access was another quiet decision made without me. I told myself he had started this method of control, and I was only answering in the language he understood. Rafe messaged that night. He asked if I still wanted Matteo shaken up. I did not answer immediately. Then Matteo came into the bedroom and took a pillow from the closet. He said he was sleeping on the couch. No anger, no debate. A silent decision marker. I told myself he was being dramatic because he wanted me to chase him. When the apartment went dark, I saved Rafe's number under a fake name. The concrete parking garage near Matteo's school always smelled like damp paint and exhaust trapped in corners. The thing is, I was not there when it happened, and that became part of how I defended myself later. Of course, the record did not care where my body was. It cared where my instructions went. I told Rafe the same thing 3 times. Scare him. Do not seriously hurt him. Make him listen. That was how I filed it in my own head. Not violence, not damage. A message. Rafe asked for the timing. I sent the parking area. Lower level. Stairwell by the blue painted line. Around 8:40 unless the school board meeting ran late. I knew all of that because Matteo's routines used to be part of our marriage. The black key fob, the shared calendar, the small trust of ordinary days. I turned ordinary trust into directions. Rafe said he would bring someone because 2 voices carried better than 1. That should have been the last line. Instead, I told him no weapons, no real injury, only fear. He sent a thumbs up like we were confirming a delivery. At home, I washed a glass twice and checked the clock. 8:20, 8:30, 8:41. I sat at the kitchen table where Matteo used to put soup in front of me on storm nights. The apartment was quiet enough to hear the refrigerator click on. The record showed I waited. In the garage, as Matteo later told it without giving me the comfort of details, 2 men stepped near him by the stairwell. They tried to block the way out. One told him he needed to learn how to listen at home. The other reached for his bag. Matteo did not become the man I imagined. He did not fold. He did not beg. He reacted faster than Rafe expected. He shoved one man back hard enough to clear space, knocked the phone from the other man's hand, and shouted toward the open level as a car turned in. No hero speech. No movie fight. Just a man refusing to be trapped twice in one lifetime. The second man ran when headlights crossed the blue line. Rafe left after him, but not before the phone stayed behind on the painted floor. Matteo picked it up. That was the part I had not planned because I had planned fear, not evidence. He came home at 9:23. I remember because I had stopped sitting by then and started wiping the same counter. His sleeve was scraped. His face had a mark near his cheekbone, not bleeding, just red. In his right hand, he held the black key fob. In his left, a plastic grocery bag with a phone inside. The thing is, I knew what that meant before he spoke. I investigated claims for a living. Phones were not objects. Phones were timelines with fingerprints. He placed the grocery bag on the dining table. Then the key fob. Then his torn cuff folded once like he was arranging a file. I asked what happened. My voice sounded too high for the room. Matteo asked if I wanted to tell him myself before he asked anyone else. Of course, I tried surprise first. I said I did not know what he meant. I said he looked hurt. I said he should sit down. I reached for the old wife shape because the new one had failed. He did not sit. He said one of the men dropped his phone. He said the thread had my name, his schedule, and the timing. He said Rafe had saved my contact under my real first name, not the fake one I had used for him. A stupid detail. A small inconsistency. The kind I would have caught in any claim file. I said Matteo made decisions for both of us and called it protection because he was too afraid to have the fight. There. Clean. Accurate. Not enough. He did not deny it. He said he had been afraid of the fights and ashamed of that fear. He said he should have faced me before I turned his silence into permission. Then he said being right about his failure did not explain why I sent fear to his parking garage. I told him I wanted him to understand how powerless I had felt. I told him I wanted him to know what it was like to have someone else decide the shape of your night. I said I needed him to listen. Matteo looked at the phone in the plastic bag. He said he understood now. That sentence had no softness in it. He said he would handle things properly. No legal words. No threat. No raised voice. Still, the room changed its locks around me. Arturo came to the apartment 20 minutes later because Matteo called the lobby. He did not enter far. He stood near the door, saw Matteo's sleeve, saw the phone bag, and asked one quiet question about whether Matteo had come through the garage entrance. Matteo said yes. Arturo wrote the time in a small notebook he carried for building issues. I hated that notebook immediately. I told Arturo this was a private matter. Arturo said the garage was part of the building record. He did not argue after that. He did not need to. After he left, I sent Nina 4 messages. One said Matteo had found out. One said Rafe had been careless. One said I needed her. One said she had told me men needed consequences. No answer came that night. The enabler's absence was a blank space where noise used to be. Rafe messaged after midnight. He said I should not mention his name. He said he never agreed to anything serious. He said the other guy was panicking. The timing mattered again. He was not worried about Matteo. He was not worried about me. He was arranging himself outside the blast. I called him twice. He did not answer. Matteo moved through the apartment with terrible calm. He took photos of the phone bag, his sleeve, the key fob, and the dining table. He put each item into a separate clear bag from the kitchen drawer, the kind we used for leftovers. He labelled them with a marker. That was my job, not his. Evidence handling, chain of custody, date, time, object. Watching him use my language against me made me louder. I told him silence was his favourite weapon. I told him he had hidden behind quiet choices until I had to become extreme to get a reaction. I told him he had built this by treating me like a storm to manage instead of a wife to face. He said he had faced me tonight. That was all. Before sunrise, I heard the front door open. He left with the black key fob, the dropped phone, the torn cuff, and no wedding ring on his hand. The apartment obeyed him after he left. The courthouse intake room had plastic chairs, grey carpet, and a clock that made a small click before every minute moved. The thing is, I came ready to give my side in a controlled way. Of course, the room shifted when I saw Matteo already there with Arturo standing near the wall. A courthouse clerk asked me to confirm my full name. Cressida Moore. Not Cressida Rivas. Not Mrs. Rivas. The record chose the name with the cleanest edge. A process server handed me the papers after I signed. I held the envelope too tightly and left a half-moon bend in one corner. The first page said temporary protective order with no contact restrictions. The hearing date was set for the following week. The attached pages were neat. Dropped phone messages, Rafe's call log, security timing, Arturo's building notes, a screenshot showing Rafe saved under a fake name in my phone, Matteo's torn cuff, the black key fob listed among his belongings. No dramatic twist. No hidden enemy. Just the record doing what records do. I said I never meant real harm. I said it was supposed to scare him because he had made me powerless first. The clerk looked at one page and asked why Matteo's parking routine had been sent to someone outside the marriage. I folded the corner of the paper until the crease stayed. Matteo said he used to think silence kept peace, but now he understood silence had only given me space to escalate. He did not look proud of that sentence. Arturo looked down at his notebook. Rafe had already given his phone records first. He said he only followed my instructions, then cut contact before I could reach him. After the order, Matteo left the room before I could turn the moment into another argument. Nina was not in the hallway. Nobody waited by the elevators. I moved into a short-stay motel room near the highway because the no-contact restrictions kept me away from the apartment. My joint spending access was limited while the garage incident and related costs were reviewed. Beth stopped taking my calls, Simone became work only, and Arturo would not speak beyond building procedure. Rafe gave records first, blocked my number, and let my name carry the weight. My supervisor moved me off field investigations and gave me desk reviews with no witness interviews. The thing is, I thought fear would make my husband listen. Of course, I called it respect because respect sounded cleaner than obedience. I had spent my life reading evidence against other people and still left my own record in plain view. I wanted control badly enough to become the room I hated. The black key fob appeared one final time on the property list attached to the order. I finally had a quiet room, and nobody in it belonged to me.